Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart here checking in. It's been a while. I realized since my last check-in we've had all kinds of crazy weather coming our way, both good and not so good. It's Wednesday, or no, was it Tuesday morning, the 16th when I'm recording this, so it's nice and sunny and the snow is mostly gone from what I can tell, so that's good. Spring has re-sprung. And I will do a quick check-in kind of our due dates and our units as things go, but honestly at this point it feels like for the most part people are have a good handle on the unit structure, the due date structure, how things kind of work, and hopefully you're really feeling a sense of sort of like community or classroom cohesion with your peers here. So if we remember way back to the start of our term, and one of my earliest announcements, maybe the very first one, I talked about my goals beyond obviously the course content was kind of the affect of the course. In other words, what it feels like on your end to take it. My two primary concerns was, first of all, especially early, was just for people to feel comfortable navigating the course. So not all online courses are set up, just like not all face-to-face courses are set up the exact same way. And so my way of thinking about it is almost like once you get used to how our course or any course is set up and how you can navigate and sort of like where to find the expectations and how do you meet those expectations, once you figure that out, the whole sort of technology or like the architecture of the course, it almost like disappears into the background. It's something you don't even really notice anymore. It's just like, you make that drive from home to school or to work or whatever so many times that you don't even notice necessarily the little tiny details. You're still paying attention to the road and what you're doing, but you don't notice every little nuance, or it doesn't kind of clutter your ability to perceive what's important and what's not important. So it's kind of the same thing in course design. Obviously, it might take a little while to get used to how any particular course is set up, but once you, I hope, if it's well set up, that time is quick, and once you get used to it, you really don't even pay attention to it anymore. So hopefully the course has become fairly easy to navigate. We always know that we're looking at due dates, we're always into the units, those units lead us to wherever we need to go, the grade system or the accessing the grade book, etc., etc. So if you're not like even thinking about that anymore, that's actually really good. And then the other part is developing this sense of that it's not just you interacting with static content through the web and sending in work, and it just has a number on it, like a grade attached at the end. Hopefully it feels like it's been more than that. You've worked directly with your peers in various groups, but you're always sort of communicating and doing what I hope are kind of creative and interesting things that are really taking you or asking you to take course content beyond the class, like virtual walls, quote unquote. So again, hopefully the whole navigation part is really faded into the background. You don't even think about it anymore. And hopefully you have at this point developed a sense of kind of connection with your classmates, like you're actually in a class doing this work together, hearing other perspectives, maybe even changing your own ideas a little bit based on input, feedback, or even just like looking at someone else's project or post. It might change your mind or provide a new additional perspective for thinking about an idea or a poet or a specific poem that we're doing, or anything like that. So again, having multiple perspectives available to you as the student, which is kind of another way of talking about class community, is really important. So hopefully you're feeling that that's been happening as well. So let's jump into our due dates here. We are, again, April 16th, Tuesday while I'm recording this, so we're kind of coming up on Unit 9 here, which is wrapping up our 789 collection. So the Unit 9 was, again, using that Padlet tool to respond to other posts. I think I even have it right up here. So this one hasn't been updated. You can only see a little bit of it. I posted a little quick note because I thought the projects were, by and large, really, really good. A great range of poets, of poetry types that we're covering, and of ways to deliver and organize that information in really creative and engaging ways. So I think it's pretty cool. And again, our reply feature here is really asking us to take kind of what we're learning or what we're being asked to think about as part of these projects and connecting it to something in the real world, in our real worlds, not even just like big picture problems or societal issues, but like in your everyday life, how does Sarah Kay's poetry matter, or what does it make you think about? I think that connection is really, really important. Okay, so that's that. Unit 10, you have hopefully done the initial work for, because this is our poetry events unit. So again, you were asked, and I have been making note of this since basically the beginning of the course, asked to go and attend a poetry event of some kind, like a poetry reading is the most common kind of thing. There's lots, well, not lots maybe, but there are maybe more than you think of these kinds of events available in our local neighborhoods. Obviously at COD, we just had our big Writers Read event, which I think some people attended. So again, just kind of the usual, right? Building out the portfolio page and just sort of reporting out on that event, hopefully with more than just text. So maybe you grabbed a picture or were able to talk to one of the people involved. Maybe you yourself were one of the poets or performers if it was a kind of like an open mic situation. So again, not like a ton of work to do here, because really the work is going to the event and collecting that audio, video, writing up the text, whatever it might be. So definitely post your stuff and then reply to others just to see what other folks have attended. Sometimes it's really interesting to find out, again, like how many of these kinds of things there really are. Even, or maybe especially because folks aren't always on the lookout for them. So we think, oh, these are just things that happen down in the city on special nights or special occasions, but it's really not true. So that would be Unit 10. Again, our initial posting on the 24th and responding by the 26th, that Friday. And then I'm going to jump into Unit 11 here. Unit 12 just kind of wraps things up. But Unit 11 is a really kind of fun one, I think. So again, having us do some creative things, not just the norm. We're going to return to our projects here, so I've linked them all out just for easy access. And so we're going to use the Google Form tool. This is like for building surveys, if you've never used it before. It's really handy for that. I use it in my professional life all the time, but even in my personal life now and then to organize, parents' meetings or whatever. So we're going to use it, and it kind of, because it's a survey tool, you can also turn it fairly easily into a quiz where you're asking people questions. There's either right or wrong or like fill in the blank type answers. And then for our purposes, the most important part, in addition to the questions that you create for your quiz, is going to be the feedback. That's really what I'm grading on, is the ample feedback that you provide built into your form. So if you've never used the tool before, like most Google products, I find the user interface fairly easy to figure out. There's like usually more options than we really need, but there's like lots of interesting buttons to click in there. And I've provided a couple of little tutorials here. They're my own, they're not Google's, so it's really for our purposes. So some screenshot stuff just to walk you through kind of like what buttons to look for or places to click. And then I did a little video, which is really the same information, but in video form if you prefer that. And of course, just discovering on your own how it works is, I find, one of the best things to do. You sort of figure it out as you go. Obviously that involves a little bit more time management, right? But it's not so complicated that you're going to need a handbook to manage it. But this is going to allow us then to do the exercise or the activity here, which I think is pretty fun. So each individual, whether you worked in a group or not, you're going to build your own quiz based on your project. So you're not quizzing everybody else on other projects or other stuff we've covered in the class. It's just on the project that you did, which I emphasize right here. And again, each individual does this. We don't do this as a group. So this is an individual project. So you're going to ask in your quiz between 5 and 10 questions. Obviously, I'm looking for more investment rather than less. You'll notice that the Google Forms setup allows a mix of different answer types, from straight up a multiple choice where there has to be one right, to short answer, to paragraph, to true false. There's probably some other ones I'm forgetting. Keeping in mind, of course, that it's going to be hard to provide feedback, or you have to think about providing feedback based on the question type. So if it's an open-ended thing, you don't want to have feedback that's premised on a right-wrong type of answer. even if, because we're delivering this as a quiz, there's going to be points associated with it. Again, not points for our class, just points so that when we do the quiz that you've made, I know, did I get all the points possible? Did I not? Again, it's just for fun. It's not for points recording for the class. But think about the question types and can people realistically answer them, and then make sure that the feedback that you provide, and this is again a step that you'll do in setting up the quiz for if someone chooses a right answer, what should the output be? If someone chooses a wrong, quote unquote, answer, what should the output be? So again, think about the question type, and if it's open-ended and I choose a so-called wrong answer, your feedback should sort of be like, we realize there's no right answer here, etc., and then some ample feedback. And again, this is really what I'm looking for you to articulate some feedback that shows like you understand what you wanted people to learn from taking the quiz and from looking at your project. So if it's kind of a factual thing like who wrote such and such a poem, or when was such and such a person born, where did they go to school, whatever, I get it right. Don't just say, yay, you got it right. Say, yay, you got it right. And it's important to note that, and then fill in some piece of, kind of analysis on your part that connects the trivia, like why I should care that this person went to this particular school or didn't go to school at all or was born in a certain time period, and how that influences or affects the type of poetry that they might be writing, or, I don't know, some other thing. So it's almost like you want a fairly substantial, almost like a paragraph for each of your questions, and keeping in mind that the right versus wrong feedback might be a little bit different. In some cases, maybe not. Like an open-ended question, you could have the feedback be almost the same. But again, you really want to tailor the feedback to the question and so it contains a kind of analysis to it. It's not just, yay, or, oh, sorry, you got that one wrong. Okay? So you've built your own quiz. Post the quiz link to the discussion board. And then as part of the reply or the follow-up, you're going to take 2 other quizzes. So just take them, do your best, refer back to the project here if you want, as part of sort of like an open book quiz, and then use the reply feature in the discussion board to reply to the quizzes. So you're not providing your answers here. You'd obviously be doing that in the quiz itself. But in your reply, be like, oh, I got 8 out of 10 right, and I got really tripped up on question number 2, but I'm happy to learn that. So again, you're sort of like responding to what you learned based on the quiz, and that's where having this really good feedback from the quiz designer is really important, to tell your quiz taker whether he or she gets the answer right or wrong, like what's the important thing you're supposed to be learning here. It's not just memorizing a date or a fact. It's using that to understand some bigger picture that's going on. Okay, so again, you have a total of 3 posts here. You're going to have your own initial post, right? When you've completed your quiz, post the link to the discussion board. Again, grabbing that link is all explained in here, as far as making the quiz accessible, not for people to edit, obviously, but for people to take. And then you're going to take 2 quizzes, and you'll reply to those 2 posts in the discussion board. So a really fun way, I hope, of getting us back into our personal projects to develop the quizzes, and then to really re-explore some of the other projects by taking the quizzes that people design. And in the past, I've seen really great quizzes that people build, really great questions, and again, the feedback makes all the difference, because the points, they don't really matter. I noticed that people do like to get full points. It's just sort of hardwired into us for the most part. But it's really why should I care that I got it right or wrong? Or what's this piece of information helping me understand bigger picture that really matters? So kind of an interesting way of reinvestigating our various projects, which again I thought were really, really good. And then our final unit, which I'll jump into, but certainly return with an announcement before we get way down there, is our final reflection. Pretty straightforward. There's a final little survey just for my purposes you can take. This again isn't for a few weeks out, so just so it's on your radar. Kind of like we did for our midterm, but expanding it. So we're returning to our basic course objectives. How have you shown through your work for the course that you've met these objectives. So we already did some of this for our midterm. So in some ways, you're just building out new examples or further description. And then whatever you didn't cover as far as the objectives for the midterm, you now want to take account of here as we finish up, building out that last portfolio page. And then there's one little extra question that I'm asking for you to reflect on here. But that's getting right down to the end of our course, due date-wise, taking us right into the beginning of May here, so you can see how it sort of lays out. All right. So again, we're just finishing up Unit 9 using the Padlet tool. Then we have our poetry event report out. Then we do our quiz time, and then our final reflection. So as always, if you have questions or concerns, be sure to be in touch, and I will check in with everybody in a few days.